Hi, I'm Arsen Kashkashian, the general manager here at the Boulder Bookstore, and welcome to a new edition of Inside the Boulder Bookstore. Today, our guest is Steph, and Steph works in our used book department. Welcome, Steph.
Hi, I'm excited to be here.
So, tell me about what you do in the used book department, what your day-to-day is like down there.
Sure. So, most days I do a combination of taking drop-offs from customers or our vendors who come to try and sell their used books. So I'm taking those books, explaining how our buying process works to them. And then, of course, I am also going through our buys, assessing each book individually to see if it's something we can take, and receiving those books into our inventory to be shelved and to find new homes.
So when you get books into used books department, it's a little different than every other department because like when new books come in or gift items come in, they come from UPS and they're all in kind of neat boxes. Some are often very uniform boxes, like a 20 box order from Random House is 20 boxes of the same size. Describe how our customers bring in books to you and what configurations, what have you seen down there, like as people use as conveyances to get the books here?
Oh, people will bring them in every kind of possible configuration, from a nice, neat stack of 5 to 7 pristine books that look like they haven't been touched to big plastic laundry baskets full of an assorted mishmash of mass paperbacks and hardcovers without their jackets and other odds and ends thrown in there. So it's really quite a range of what comes in, and I end up, consolidating a lot into our boxes, but it's always a surprise.
Do you feel, this is going to be a gross generalization, which I'm asking you to make, but do you feel that you can look at the packaging of the books and get an idea of whether you're going to be able to buy a decent amount of those books or not? Or are you sometimes surprised that the 3 trash bags yield some gold?
I think it's more often when I look at the way that somebody has packaged their books. If it's haphazard and the books are pretty dirty that I can see when I immediately open, I sort of know that I'm not going to be able to take most of them. But oftentimes I am surprised that there are hidden treasures in there. And so I don't discount immediately. Although I definitely prefer handling cleaner books, but I think sometimes the more motley assortments yield some more obscure and interesting things, even if they're books that we can't necessarily sell. I always delight in coming across things I've never seen before, and showing those to my coworkers and other customers.
Can you think of a recent book or two that was like that you're like, oh, I got to show this to everybody, even if we can't buy it?
Oh, goodness. So, well, right now downstairs, there's a copy of the Dune Encyclopedia from 1984 that came in and was something that we, our customers probably would like, but I looked online and found that it actually is quite valuable, and that we couldn't, we don't pay surplus for rare or collectible books, but it was a really cool find, and a lot of our staff really are into science fiction and fantasy, and it was so nice to show them. And I called the vendor and let her know, hey, you've got this kind of collectible here. You may want to keep it or sell it yourself online. And she was excited to hear that too. So things like that happen once in a while.
Yeah, it's just we don't have a rare book room or a locked case or anything like that. And, it would be fun to have something like that. But, years ago when I went to Powell's and we were trying to figure out how to set up the used book section, they had a rare book room, which was amazing. It was probably the highlight of my visit.
Yeah.
But then when I found out, at that time, how often they sold or didn't sell stuff out of there, it's like, that's a lot of space. It was more museum than store. So I was like, I don't think that's going to work here.
Yeah. And I think that is something at the used desk that I'm always sort of juggling in myself is the balance between my role in helping us sustain our business and buying books that will be likely to be purchased quickly by people, and also just an interest in these objects that you don't see very often that, aren't things that will yield a profit, but have an interesting history and are interesting to look at. So I'm always sort of balancing those two interests in myself.
So one of the things I found very interesting about your role and how you handle the role of used book buyer is there's often certain parts of the job that nobody likes. Mm-hmm. And one of those parts of the job that nobody ever seems to like is peeling labels off the books.
Yeah.
Peeling, because we're going to put our new used book label on it. So if we have a new label on the back or something, we've got to get it off of there.
Right.
And nobody seems to like that. But you have turned this activity into gold, so to speak. So why don't you tell us what you've done, and we can hold up what your finished product to the audience, and how it came about. What was even the way that you got there?
Yeah, so I think this is partly the way my brain works, where if I find myself doing something repeatedly over and over, I kind of get curious about it. And after several months of noticing that I was peeling off, particularly our old book labels where you can see the titles very clearly, I started becoming curious about these removed pieces of titles. And so I just started putting the old labels aside, and then later on spent some time sort of putting two together and finding, this combination of words is actually quite funny. It started out just something that made me laugh. But it was something that I kept wanting to do and was connected to my just day-to-day time. And there was something interesting about repurposing these things that typically just end up in the trash.
Usually as fast as possible.
Yeah.
Usually you're doing it over a trash can.
Yes. And so over like a year or so, I found myself with these little thoughts, partial poems, sayings, that to me felt like, I guess I would call them found poetry, but a way to create something amusing out of my day-to-day. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Well,
you definitely succeeded, and it is kind of like found poetry, except you're doing a lot more work than sometimes found poetry can be. Where you find something and you're curating exactly what you want, but you're kind of mixing and matching as well, like going a step beyond what you would think traditionally of found poetry is.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I brought. It's a physical. I'm a visual artist, and so it is a physical process. So I collect them in books and spend a lot of time composing these labels until I find an arrangement that hits.
Right. So the finished product, at least at this point, mm-hmm. is Such a Fun Ghostland, a song in scavenged verse. There's so many good ones in here where you put fire up your little life. That's a couple labels in a row. some you do vertically too. You know, like I think towards the end there's one that's all these vertical ones.
Mm-hmm.
You know, and it really was. You know, knowing you, it wasn't a surprise, but it was really a good read. It was really fun. I really enjoyed it. Kind of looking forward to such a fun Ghostland too.
Yeah,
you know,
it's definitely in the works. It's sort of it's a process I haven't been able to, or a habit I haven't been able to kick. So there's definitely, I mean, in order to make that one, I had to edit out a lot of other ones, and so there's I have a bit of a backlog. So there will likely be a second. Further iterations of this, but
I like this one. What's wrong with slaying the dragon just for the summer? So that's 3 different labels put together. And it's fun because sometimes you recognize the books, you know, like so you know what the different books are. You have one in here that I really thought was kind of very profound. See if I can find it. I like this. It's okay to be angry again and again. You have one where it's about I love you, but my body like strangers or something. Is that in? That's somewhere in here.
That's towards the beginning.
That's towards the beginning. But I thought that was.
I
was
love
like,
you,
wow.
but my body keeps talking to strangers.
That's right. That's like very profound.
Well, it would surprise. I mean, in a lot of ways, it was like it feels like these aren't my ideas or thoughts. They kind of just coalesced in front of me, and it kind of is like having a conversation. Sort of with other authors, with the books themselves in a way. And so I like that it is my voice, but it's also many other voices, which is interesting. It makes me, I like how it makes me feel connected to these systems of language that I'm enmeshed in, like, in the literary sense, but also in like the book selling and sense as well. Yeah.
What I like about it, what I almost find inspirational about it, is you've taken something that a lot of people regard as a waste of time, peeling these labels, lost time. And you know, as I've gotten older, I've kind of tried to think of my life as like no time is wasted. Mm-hmm. Like even if you're driving from here to there, or you're stuck in a traffic jam, that's still part of your life. It's still part of, and so you've taken this kind of mundane activity that some people would say is a waste of time, and you've created something out of it. It's definitely not a waste of time.
Well, thank you very much. I think I definitely have that feeling of wasting time. I think that's an easy feeling for many of us to have with how fast life moves and how much is thrown at us every day. And I think things like picking up something off of the ground and finding it interesting is, at least for me, a bit of a remedy to that. Connecting with my immediate environment, the things that are right in front of me, because I think, and that actually takes me to like a book that had a big impact on me a number of years ago, which is Jenny Odell's How to Do Nothing. Mm-hmm. She wrote this that book that had a profound impact on me and how I thought about how I spent my time and where I placed my attention. And she writes a lot. It's been a minute since I read the book, but what stuck with me is her sort of pushing back against, like you said, how we think about time that is wasted. And she really questions, she writes about sitting day after day, observing these crows that land on her balcony and sort of getting to know these crows, looking at noticing moss that grows through the cracks in the sidewalk, and that there are worlds to be found in seemingly everyday, meaningless parts of our daily lived experience. Mm-hmm.
So I want to talk about a book that we're both reading. You're reading it again, and I just finished it for the first time, and that's Martyr by Kaveh Akbar. Mm-hmm. And boy, I just thought this was an absolute fantastic book, and I approached you because I thought I didn't realize you had read it already, but I thought it has themes of art and everything in it, and you gave my love right back. You loved it even more. So can you talk about Martyr a little bit and why it struck you so much and why you're reading it again?
Well, I first listened to it, and as an audio book, it's beautifully read, and there were thoughts about art and about language that just struck me as so poignant and beautiful. Akbar writes in this very kind of concentrated way. I tend to like, something I've learned as I've been working here is I tend to like books written by poets. For the, I don't know, just concentrated visuals that they can give, or the like precision of language. And themes that I kept coming back to in Martyr was sort of both like this love of language, because the main character is a poet that's trying to write this thing and is sort of devoting his life or his end of life almost to finding words. But there's also so much about the failures of language and the failures of communication and how that causes so much violence and pain. And yeah, Kaveh Akbar just made so many beautiful observations through his characters about that in this book.
Yeah, there's a passage which I can't quite remember exactly how it is, but I think the point of it is that language is once removed from life automatically. Like, and then if you have imprecise language, of course, you're that much more removed, you know?
Right.
And here is this, like you said, beautifully written book with such concise language. I don't want to undersell things like other people would like. Like me and you kind of read often for just the writing, and it doesn't really matter so much what a book's about. But this book also has a fantastic plot with amazing characters.
Yeah.
But it is often about getting things down as close to life as you can, sort of.
Yeah.
And sometimes it's not that close, even if you're trying.
Yeah. Well, and what I love about the book, too, is there is all of this meditation on language, but it's applied to like these relationships in the book and histories. Like, he does such a beautiful job of putting language into very human experiences, family dynamics, friendships, romance.
Politics even, history.
Oh, my goodness. Yeah, absolutely.
Well, thank you for being here, Steph. I could talk to you all day, but we actually have to go to work.
I know. I was like, they're going to be, I can sense the people bringing me the books are outside waiting, so I have to go get them. But thank you so much, Arsen.
Yeah, it's been great.
Yeah.
Thanks for tuning in to another episode of Inside the Boulder Bookstore. And if you like what you see here, please subscribe to our YouTube channel.